Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to yet another YouTube video where today I'm going to be looking at all the roster changes that have been made over the past few weeks. So yeah, there's been quite a lot of them. I think in total about 9 teams have changed their rosters or disbanded. So that's quite a lot of teams, a lot of changes that I have to cover in this video. So I am going to be updating you guys with the roster moves made over this transfer window, if I can call it that, and then also discuss my thoughts on each change made and just provide an opinion on, like, okay, do I think the team is better off with the pickups? Do I think they may be worse off? Might they struggle now that they've lost some key players? I'm going to be diving into all of that. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and without further ado, let's get right into it.
We up all night until the sun comes up. Feeling so high and you can feel my...
First up, we have Bravado Gaming. This team formed all the way back in March of this year, and this was a team that I was looking at and I was going like, whoa, this team has a lot of promise, you know, just give them a bit of time and they can potentially become a number 3 team in the country. And it was looking really good. They were looking like they were on the correct trajectory, but then unfortunately, as things do happen, some things went wrong and unfortunately ended up placing 5th at the recently concluded VS Masters, which is also, for those of you that don't know, the biggest CS event of this year. So obviously that would have been disappointing and therefore changes had to be made. The changes that did get made is Zox and Falls that decided to leave the team, each for different reasons. Zox to later go join another team, which I'm going to be touching on a bit later in the video, and then Falls, I believe he stated just academics to be the reason he wants to put more time into his studies, which is fair enough. And the players that they brought in to replace the deadly duo of Zox and Falls were Deadshot and Tristan. Now, losing 2 of your young guns, kind of the players that you picked up in this roster to mold into better players, become your star players for the team. Now, losing them as WRG is going to be a big loss, because these players have been with the team for the entire year. They've learned so much from P&D, Destroyed and Awesome, who have been kind of teaching them all they know, and now unfortunately they've ended up leaving the roster. So that is definitely going to leave a dent in this WRG roster. I at least think so. But out of all the players that they could have possibly picked up to replace Zox and Falls, I think that picking up Deadshot and Tristan is a really good decision. So for Deadshot, he himself has just shown an immense amount of talent and growth this year with Sinister 5 after managing to place 3rd at VS Masters, which would have not only been an amazing experience for him, but also he's been gaining a lot of experience from that tournament. So that's going to be massive. I mean, at the beginning of the year he was a rookie, and now, you know, he's gone through it all. He's been in finals, he's been in semi-finals, so he's really got a lot of experience behind him. And WRG are now not acquiring a rookie where you could maybe at the beginning of the year have thought, okay, Zox and Falls not much competitive experience, so we kind of taking a gamble on these players. With Deadshot, you at least have that assurance of like, okay, no, this guy has proven himself. He's been playing the entire year. He's been playing some good CS. So there's at least that you do have with Deadshot. Then Tristan, on the other hand, is making a return to competitive CS. Actually, he took a long break from the scene, but he has now returned to the fray with this WRG roster. Now, I can't really deliver an opinion on my thoughts of what I think of WRG picking up Tristan, because I didn't really follow his career too closely when he was playing. He was playing at around 2018, 2017. He played for teams like Good Gaming, I think. He played with a bunch of players, but unfortunately then he decided to step out of the scene, and I unfortunately didn't catch him when he was playing. So I don't know how good he is, but I have played against him in a few pugs and he absolutely dominated me. So I'm sure Tristan will do fine in this WRD roster. It's just not up to me to say how well he might or might not do. So overall, I still think that WRG have what it takes to become a super solid top 4 team in the country, without a doubt. They've got it all. They've got Destroyed, who is a heavy frag frag and has shown his potential with the rifle. You've got Awesome as well. He falls into that same category. He's just such a mechanically gifted player. I mean, he's been labeled by some of the 80k players as the best aimer in the country, like without a doubt. So that is a huge asset to have. And then obviously PND, who is just an exceptional IGL, who has so much experience. So with that trio, now you have two younger players joining up. I actually don't know how old Tristan is, but just for the sake of the argument, let's say that Tristan is also a younger player that they are picking up. You're picking up two younger players, but with experience. Tristan, obviously, in his days, played a lot of comp CS. Now Deadshot, he's come off of a successful season with Sinister 5 joining up. Obviously, they have big boots to fill. Zox and Falls, they were pretty heavy fraggers, pretty explosive as well. So it's not going to be a matter of like, okay, in a week they've replaced and learnt every single thing that Zox and Falls had and kind of replace them fully. I think it is going to take a bit longer than it would usually take, but I think this roster definitely has the potential to get to where they were before the roster changes were made. Next up, we have Zion, and they have arguably been the busiest in the transfer market of all the teams. They picked up 3 new players and a coach to replace their previous core and to fill the empty coach slot that they did actually have. So Zion, they picked up Nyx from Bravado, they picked up God's Not Dead from GAC, and they picked up Raid from Ekasi to replace the departures of Bam, Malkis, and Kana. Now, I was very excited when I saw these changes, as the players that they picked up have immense amounts of skill, experience. They have everything that you need in players to improve your squad. Now, just touching on the players that they did obviously pick up, I didn't mention it, but their coach is actually going to be Cloudsy. He was picked up before this whole transfer roster, well, the transfer moves kicked off. He was kind of picked up one of the first pickups to be announced by Zion, so I think it's going to be really exciting. He was obviously a player for a really long time. He's never coached before, so I don't really know how he's going to be filling into that role, but obviously he can take everything that he does have from his playing days and try and just throw it over to the players in this team. Maybe if he notices some trends in certain rounds, then he can obviously throw that over, and who better to learn from than Nick, obviously the ex-coach of Bravado. Now, talking about Nick, he has now joined as a player in this roster. Obviously, he was previously a caster, then he went to coach, first Royalty, then Big 5, who then where he then went to Bravado. Now he's left Bravado and he's become a player, which is, personally, I love the move that he's made. It really just shows that he wants to achieve everything that he possibly can in the CSGO scene. Be a good caster, be a great coach, and also become an exceptional player. So I think with the vast amounts of experience that he brings, I mean, he's been in the pro cycle, I want to say, for about 2 years now, and just playing with that whole Bravado squad, playing with your Detrinies, your Flexies, your Wipeouts, that is an immense amount of experience that you can take from all of those players, and he must have learned a lot, so he can now bring that to Zion, and I don't see how that would not be able to benefit them. Now, one of the biggest question marks on Nyx's back might be his fragging power, because we all know the common perception around coaches are that, oh yeah, coaches can't frag, man. Coaches are essentially silvers. So now he's going to have to prove if he can frag or if he can't. So in my opinion, he definitely can frag. I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. I definitely think he is an exception to the rule that is that coaches are bad, because he's definitely not too bad at the game. I mean, he's been playing at the highest level of pugs, you know, Masters in Face It when it was still around, ECA Pro Div that is now around. He's been playing against the best of the best and holding his own. So I definitely think that his fragging power shouldn't be questioned too much. Obviously, transitioning from a coach to a player might still take a while. Maybe it's a matter of weeks, months, we'll have to see, but I definitely think he will be able to step up if you do give him enough time. Then the next two pickups being God's Not Dead and Raid. So first going to be touching God's Not Dead. He will only bring good things to Zion. I mean, he has vast amounts of experience. He's also been in the competitive cycle, if you can call it that. Basically been playing for so many years now. I think even obviously in smaller teams, but been in the proper pro cycle ever since Royalty, which has been off for 2 years. He's gone from Royalty to Big 5 to GAC. So he's been competing for a really long time now, and he's going to bring all of that experience to this team. He's a very mechanically gifted player as well. I've labeled him as a top 5 aimer. It's a bit of a meme, but I do think he has pretty cracked aim. And he's also played with Nick before, so that's definitely going to be an advantage for them because there's going to be a bit of chemistry between them. So that is definitely going to be a positive. And not to mention that he was one of the standout players for GAC this entire season of CS. So he's coming on form, he's ready to frag, and he's just ready to step it up a notch or step it up to another level with Zion and just absolutely turn on, man. So really, really exciting stuff. Then getting on to Raid, he brings all the same things that God's Not Dead brings to the team. And I think that these pickups, when directly comparing them to Bam and Kana, obviously the departures in Zion, they are going to be solving a lot of problems that Zion did have. Kana was a very, very solid player, and I think that if Raid is not on the same level, he might be on an even higher level, not only individually, but he's obviously got more experience than Kana. So if you're comparing those two players directly, I think Raid might be a bit of an upgrade, which is awesome to see. And then also, if you're just comparing God's Not Dead and Bam, they might not be a like-for-like comparison, but if you're just looking at the two players, God's Not Dead, you know, he's on form. He's always been a very hard frag. He's got that potential to just absolutely destroy everyone in the server, right? Whereas Bam, he's really been struggling over the past few months within Zion with his consistency and fragging power specifically. That might just be down to, you know, maybe lack of form or something, but that is obviously why he did get replaced. So I think, you know, you're now bringing in two more experienced players, two more mechanically gifted players. So those are going to be huge upgrades for Zion, and that is definitely what they do need to improve their roster. So overall, I think that the changes that Zion have made are literally the perfect changes. Every single player that they've brought in is, in my opinion, literally an upgrade to the players that they have replaced. So Zion, they were always a top 6 team with the previous roster that they had. Now you have Vaynant and Leggy, who have always just been absolutely insane, bringing in 3 players that are upgrades to your previous 3 players that you did have. If they were a top 6 team then surely now, after a bit of time and after all the players on the same page, Zion could definitely be a top 40, maybe even higher than that. So I am very excited to see this roster in action, obviously, when we do get underway with the up and coming ECA season. Next up, getting to Sinister 5. So unfortunately, Sinister 5 were the biggest losers of this transfer window. And the reason I'm saying that is because they've lost all their star players. They lost Triton, they lost Frozen, and they lost Deadshot. So those were your fraggers in the team. Those were your star players. And you've lost all 3 of them now. So just to replace those players is already going to be such a tall order. And it's also really sad to see after they've had such a good year. I mean, they placed 2nd in the ECA Season 37 Intermediate. They made it all the way to the finals. And they placed 3rd at the recently concluded VS Masters finals, actually. So it was a super impressive year for Sinister 5, and I definitely think for all 5 of those players that were previously in that roster, that was the highest that they've ever reached in their careers. So it was an absolutely amazing achievement for all of them. But sadly, they've decided to split ways with only Chappie and Ruben staying behind. So Sinister 5, they've brought in 3 new players to obviously replace their 3 departure players, and those 3 new players are Bam from Zion, Glitchy from Ekasi, and then a familiar face returning to Sinister 5 is going to be Shia. He was actually inactive over the past few months. He played with Sinister 5 early on in the year, and then around March, April. I want to say, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100%. He did end up leaving the team, took a bit of a competitive break, didn't play for any other teams. But now he is back, and he's back in Sinister 5. So that is at least one saving grace of this whole Sinister 5 roster change, is that you're at least coming back. Well, you're at least being able to see a familiar face return to the team. Touching more on Bam and Glitchy, these are both young and exciting prospects for ZACS, and they've both showed what they can do on the server with their previous teams. Yes, I know with Bam, I did just mention that he did go through a huge dip in form, but I almost feel like Sinister 5 should be a redemption project of sorts for Bam, and this is his perfect opportunity to kind of show Zion, like, this is what you're missing out on. If I have my confidence back enough, if I'm playing around players that do believe in me, then I can just absolutely frag out. So this is gonna be what Sinister 5 is for him, and that can work out exceptionally well. He can absolutely just destroy every team he plays against because he's super motivated, or hopefully not, his dip in form just continues, and you know, it's just going to be more the same as Zion. So hopefully it's not that. Hopefully it's going to be a whole redemption project for Bam, and he might elevate Sinister 5 to the heights that they were at in the year so far. As for Glitchy, obviously he performed really well with the Ekasi throughout the majority of the year, and now he's joined up with Sinister 5, and he brings that, you know, maybe a bit of fountain of youth to this team, because he is also a super young player alongside Bam. And it feels like with all these young players, the thing that they have in common is just like exceptional aim, exceptional movement. It's all there. They just need experience. And I think Glitchy has a bit of experience behind him. I mean, he's played with some pretty experienced players in that Ekasi lineup, so you can definitely now bring that into this team and just, you know, work on his personal game more, work on his team game more, and just develop as a player in this team. Lastly, Sheer is a super strong player, which I can believe kind of gelled this team together. And why I'm saying that is because he obviously played with Ruben and Chappie in the beginning of the year, so this is going to be kind of a reunion for those guys, and he can kind of be the mediator between Ruben and Chappie and Glitchy and Bam, and say like, okay, we like to run things like this and this and this, because he's also new and he has contacts with Ruben and Chappie. He can kind of be the middleman and maybe just get everyone on the same page quicker, which is going to be a small positive that his roster change does bring. Next up, really exciting transfer announcement is obviously going to be Big 5. They did announce the signing of Frozen, which is super impressive, probably one of the most impressive signings of this transfer window, because as I mentioned earlier when I was discussing Sinister 5, he was the absolute star player for them. He's just been so damn impressive on that AWP this entire year, and he's kind of been a junior Slowy running around, and Slowy obviously being the best AWPer in the country by far, or he always was. We'll have to see if he still is. And Frozen, you know, has shared a lot of characteristics that Slowy obviously has, so that obviously helped him to reach the heights that he did reach throughout this year. And he's actually going to be replacing Slayer, who unfortunately decided to leave Big 5, but I do think that replacing Frozen with Slayer is the best possible replacement, because you've got a young AWP who's confident in his own ability and also understands the game really well and what he wants to do, how he wants to move around the map. So I think that is really important to have in an AWP, and just to highlight his just the individual skill that he does bring to Big 5. He actually, well, when he was still in Sinister 5, they were playing against Goliath Gaming in the match to send them to the lower bracket final. Lose and you're out, win and you are securing yourselves a minimum of third place at the tournament. And he dropped an overall rating across the whole series of 1.63, which is just, you know, you guys can go do your research, go look at HLTV to just see how mental that statistic is. He's going to bring so much firepower to this Big 5 roster, and I am just so damn excited. I think he's going to be elevating Big 5 to just a new height, bring that X factor to the team, and he just has that ability to kind of dig a team out of rounds and just be the switch up factor in a round. So I do think that Big Five, they've made absolutely amazing business by picking up Frozen, and I just think this is going to be such a positive thing for them. Moving on to Bravado, obviously the VSGaming Masters champions, they've also been active in the transfer market so far, and it's been a forced change that they had to make, because Destiny, after he won the VS Master tournament, did announce that he will be stepping down as the IGL and AWPA of Bravado, and it is going to be none other than Slowy replacing him. It is obviously very sad to see Destiny step away from the server, because he's just been such an iconic figure in South African CSGO for a decade, I want to say, maybe even more than that. So it's going to be really sad to see him step away. Hopefully not entirely. Hopefully he does maybe come back again. But for now, going to be focusing on the pickup of Slowy. It's probably the biggest pickup that Bravado could have made, and I think if I really have to think about this whole transfer window, it is the best pickup out of the whole transfer window. This is kind of like a Ronaldo to Man United type of thing. This is kind of like a Ronaldo to Man United type of thing.
Big chance for Keita, and Liverpool, Alexander-Arnold's cross, and it's 2. Again, and it's 3. It's a bobbler, and it's 4 for Liverpool. From Henderson, and it's Mo Salah again.
It is that big, in my opinion. Slowy, he was the best AWPer in the country without a doubt prior to him leaving ATK, and now that he's come back from his break and kind of decided, I want to get back into competitive CS, join up with Bravado, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think he's going to be able to just bring that X factor that he did bring when he was obviously playing with ATK, and I think it is the best possible replacement that Destiny could have made, because he actually made the change himself at the end of the day. So it is going to be really exciting to see Slowy in the server again, and obviously it might just take a bit of time, but I'm sure with a bit of time, Slowy will be able to get the team on the same page, because it's actually going to be IGLing as well for the first time, I believe. So that might be a bit nervous for him, you know, to kind of take up a new role and AWP as well. But we'll have to see how he is able to dual wield the role of AWP and IGL. Just one interesting prospect that I did want to mention, obviously with Bravado, is that they did obviously lose Nick, that did join Zion. So they haven't announced a coach to replace him, so I'm assuming they are going to be going without a coach. So I'm just very interested to see if it will affect them in any way or not. It's more a question than an opinion, actually. And just overall, I think, again, this is the best possible replacement that Bravado could have made to replace Destiny, and I'm just very excited to be able to see Slowy back in the server, man. So now next up, we've got Omnius Gaming. Maybe a roster that we haven't talked about for a while. It's just all been the big 6 big 8 teams, but now we're getting over to Omnius Gaming, and they've made a really interesting roster change. They've decided to replace Cloudy, who obviously left that roster quite a while ago, and Insanity also, after being with that roster for about 2 years or almost 2 years or something, they'd also decide to leave the team, and they've replaced those players with the young guns of Raz and Natural, obviously being from X-Astrus. So for me personally, I love the change that OG made here. It kind of reminds me of what WRG did with Stocks and Falls, you know, kind of giving young players an opportunity to get into your team and be under a big name such as Omnius Gaming. It's really cool to see something like that. And I mean, just touching on both of the players, Raz obviously is just a super intelligent player with the way he approaches CS, and he obviously does bring a lot of skill to the server, as all the players actually do bring. So not to mention, he obviously does bring skill to the server. I think he might be AWPing for the team, and that might be interesting because I don't quite know how he is on the AWP. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to be adapting to that role. Maybe I'm a bit out of touch. Maybe he's always been an AWPer, then it's my bad. But if he's not, then it's going to be interesting how he does adapt to that role. And then getting over to Natural, who for me would probably be in, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but I don't really think so. I think for me, Natural is one of the top 5 in my top 5 under the age of 18 players in this country. No questions about it. Like that is how strongly I feel about him. I mean, just his fragging power alone kind of explains the reason that Omnius Gaming did decide to pick him up. I mean, this guy is absolutely nuts. The stats at least that he has is absolutely crazy. And I think that both of these players now joining up with Omnius Gaming, joining up with maybe more experienced players, it is going to be a positive for not only for them, but also for the more experienced players of Sledge, Synapse and Devs, because they've been around for a while and they've been so used to each other for so long. And now, you know, just bring in 2 new players, it might just reinvigorate stuff. You know, you can get that motivation going back. You can kind of like rediscover why you got into competitive CS, and maybe this will be able to push OG to new heights. So overall, I think this is definitely a upgrade for Omnius Gaming on their previous plays that they did have, and I'm really excited to see where they go with this. Now getting into Goliath Gaming, and I can now, as of today, officially say that they have decided to pick up a new roster. So obviously they've cut 3 players, obviously being Elusive, Deviant and Zip, and they've picked up 3 new players to replace them, being Zox, obviously XWRG, Triton, Sinister 5, and Massacre is actually going to be returning to the Goliath Gaming roster, and they are going to be accompanying Dweezil and ADM. Straight off the bat, I know I said I am the most excited about the Slowy transfer, but this is just on the same level. It's so close. Like, these are such exciting players that Goliath have decided to pick up. Triton, he's arguably been the best player of the year in my eyes so far. Zox, a really young talent. He did grab the opportunity that he was given by WRG with both hands and really showed what he can do. And then Massacre, we all know what he can do. He's been around the block for such a long time, and he was always, you know, one of the best players in the country. So to see him back in the server with Goliath Gaming, it's just absolutely amazing to see. And I'm just really excited for Goliath Gaming because the 3 players that they did decide to pick up Zox and Triton, and welcome back Massacre. That's just super exciting stuff. And obviously Dweezil and ADM, not really much to discuss around those players. If you don't know them, they both VSGaming Masters champions, Dweezil being a 2-time, ADM being a 1-time champion. And these are just 2 of the most decorated players in the scene. So for me, this is going to be one of the most exciting rosters out there. I definitely think if you're looking at the potential of this roster, and this might again be a bit of a hot take, but I think this is a rival for that #1 spot that is being fought for between Bravado and the NMK. I think with this roster, Goliath definitely have a shout to get into that #1 spot, take that back, because if we think back to 2019, they were always the #1 team, no questions about it. They were always up there, but that kind of disappeared in 2020 with ATK, and then for the first half of this year too. And obviously they only ended 4th in VS Masters, so it's not where they were. Yes, 4th is a good result, but it's not the #1, and that's where they want to be. So I think with the plays that they did pick up, they definitely have the potential to do so. And obviously there's been a bit of a tournament. There was the ECA Cash Cup hosted recently where Goliath Gaming actually won that. They beat Bravado 2-0. Yes, it's still early days for the Goliath Gaming and Bravado rosters. We're slowly being picked up, but for me, that's already a telltale sign that if Goliath Gaming went on to beat DNMK, by the way, in the semi-finals, and Bravado in the finals, those were your two finalists at VS Masters. Those were your 1 and 2 teams. If they can, just with them being like 1 week old, essentially beat your number 1 and number 2 team, that is just a telltale sign that this Goliath Gaming roster has so much potential. Then just going to be touching on some unfortunate news, and the reason for me saying that is because we're going to be touching on teams disbanding. That is obviously going to be Ekasi. Firstly, they've unfortunately disbanded, with only Glitchy being able to find a home. He obviously did transfer over to Sinister 5, and then GAC as well did unfortunately disband, with the only player, to my knowledge at least, being able to find a new home was God's Not Dead with Zion. So yeah guys, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and if you have any suggestions on how I can improve my content, please let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more of this, please do not hesitate to subscribe to the channel. So hope you have a great day and enjoy it. Cheers.
We up all night until the sun comes up. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Feeling so high and you can feel my cup.